Alright guys, our lesson for today is going to be over order of operations. I don't know if you can hear in the background since y'all have been out, but we've got some crickets going on in the background. This week we inherited two geckos, so when you get back you'll see two geckos. Their names are going to be Mal and Pascal. But anyways, they eat crickets and the crickets are chirping in the background, so I don't know if you can hear them or not, but if you hear crickets, that's why. So anyways, back to what we're talking about today. Our lesson is going to be over order of operations. Order of operations should not necessarily be new. It's something that you talked about last year in 5th grade, and it's one of our stepping stones for algebra. We've been introducing algebra, and so this is probably one of the most important things to algebra is the orders of operations. So if you get out your packet that I sent home, you will see, and you flip to, I think it's like the 3rd page or something like that, you'll find this page with the piece of cake. You'll see that the first thing here that it tells us to do is label each of the steps in order in which you would bake a cake. So I want you to read over these. If you read over these steps, it says combine flour and baking powder, add to the creamed mixture and mix well. Preheat oven to 350 degrees. Grease and flour a 9 by 9 inch pan or line a muffin pan with paper liners. In a medium bowl, cream together the sugar and the butter, beat in the eggs one at a time, then stir in the vanilla. Bake for 30 to 40 minutes in the preheated oven. For cupcakes, bake 20 to 15 minutes. Pour or spoon batter into prepared pan. So these are all the steps in order to make either a cake or cupcakes, but they're not in order. And so we want to put them in order. So if you stop and you think for a second, what's the very first thing when you're making a cake that you have to do first? You have to turn on the oven. You have to preheat the oven. If the oven's not hot, our cake's not going to turn out. So that's going to be step 1. Step 2 is going to be, you always start with your liquid stuff when baking cakes. So step 2 would be to, in a medium bowl, mix those ingredients together. Then we're going to combine the flour. Once everything's been combined, we need to prepare our pan. Then we can pour it into the pan, and then we can bake. So the purpose of this is not so to make a cake, which if you're at home and you want to make a cake, go ahead and make a cake. But the purpose of this is to stop and think. If we move these steps out of order, let's say we never turned on the oven, and we did all these steps and everything, and then we put it in the oven, but we never turned on the oven to preheat it or anything. Are we ever going to be able to bake a cake? No, we're not. The cake's not going to work. If I mix it all up but never put it in the oven, it's not going to work either. Or if I just put flour in a bowl and put it in the oven, well, we're not going to have our cake. So the purpose behind this is to show us that steps are very important, and steps are very important in math as well. And it's important so that we can all follow the same steps so we can all get the same results or the same answers. And so right here, our first blanket says, order of operations provides a method for simplifying expressions so that all of our answers are the same. So as I'm filling these notes out, you need to be filling yours out as well. If you don't have your paper packet yet, then you need to be either making notes on a piece of notebook paper, or when you get your paper packet, go back and fill those notes in. But anyway, so it provides a method for us. There are various ways to remember the order. So we have this mnemonic. I don't know if you can remember it, but it starts with a P for orders of operations. Please. Do you remember it now? Excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Okay, you may remember that now. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And each letter represents something. Okay, so P, E, M, D, A, S. Those all stand for something. And we write it in this little, looks like a hopscotch in a way, but we write it in this form right here, where P goes first, E, M, or D, A, or S. Do you remember what P stands for? That's right, P stands for parentheses. E stands for exponents, like we talked about in the last video. M or D stands for multiplication or division. Notice I didn't use an X for multiplication because we don't use X's anymore. A or S, so addition or subtraction. Now, this is like our checklist, and so we check, see, do we have parentheses first? Okay, then we move to exponents. When we get down to these two right here, these are slightly different. This depends on which comes first in the problem. So let's say I'm working a problem and division, it's got division and multiplication, and division comes before the multiplication. I would do the division first, then the multiplication. And we work these problems from left to right, just like we read, from left to right. Okay? So we have a few examples here, and we'll use this as our checklist right here. So we have 8 plus 6 times 2 squared, 2 to the second power. And remember that as a review, that this is our base. That tells us what number we're multiplying by, and this tells us how many times we're multiplying it. So we've got the number 2, and we're multiplying it 2 times. So we check and we see we have parentheses. Do we have any parentheses here? No. So then we move to exponents. Do we have an exponent? Yes, 2 squared. And so we know that 2 squared equals 4. So I'm going to underline that because that's what I'm working with. Each piece that I work with, I kind of underline it. It just draws my attention to that piece right there. And then I'm going to bring down everything else that's not underlined. So I don't have any more parentheses. I don't have any more exponents. So now I can move to, do I have any multiplication or division? And this dot right here represents multiplication. So that's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to underline that because that's what I'm working with. 6 times 4 is 24. Bring down the rest, 18. Only thing left I have left is 18 plus 24. And that's going to give me 42. And so there's my answer. Had I not followed these steps, then we could have gotten a completely different answer than each other, and that would not have worked. Okay? Look at number 2. Do we have, so we go back to our checklist, do we have any parentheses? Yeah, we do, right here. So we will do what's inside the parentheses first. 18 plus 6 is going to be 24. Bring down everything else, 2 squared. And then I have an exponent that's next in the list. 2 squared, we already determined over here, was 4. Bring down the rest. And so now I have 24 times 4, and that gives me 96. And you can use your calculator for these if you would like. Alright, I want you to pause the video, and I want you to try to work numbers 3 and 4 on your own. And then you can unpause it, and I'm going to work them out for you. Okay, and you can check to see if you did your work correctly. And if you didn't do your work correctly, I want you to go back and see what you did wrong, okay? All right, so number 3. We go and we check. Do we have any parentheses? No. Do I have any exponents? Yes. 2 squared is 4. Bring everything else down. Then I move to multiplication or division. Do I have any multiplication or division? I have 2 multiplications, so you have 2 options here. You can either do both multiplications at the same time, or you can do them one at a time. So I could do 7 times 8 and 3 times 4. 7 times 8 is 56, minus 5, plus 3 times 4 is 12. Now what you could have done is you could have done 56 and then brought everything else down. Then you could have done 3 times 4 and got 12. And you would have ended up with this expression right here either way. Alright, this is where it comes in. We have subtraction and addition. So addition or subtraction. If you got this problem wrong, this is probably where you went wrong. Alright, this, if you look back at our note, it says which comes first in the problem. And we're reading it from left to right. So 56 minus 5 is what comes first. So that's what I do first. So 56 minus 5 is going to give me 51. Then I can bring down my plus 12. Now I can add 12, and I would get 63 as my answer. All right, And number 4, we've got parentheses, so we do parentheses first. All right. Then I have exponents, 3 squared. Remember, this is not 3 times 2. Remember, that means our base is 3. We're multiplying by 3 2 times, so it means 3 times 3. So it gives me 9. Bring down everything else. And don't jump ahead of yourself, and don't try to jump steps. Take it step by step, because that's when you're going to mess up if you try to do that. So 20 divided by 4 is going to give me 5 plus 9. And then 5 plus 9 is going to give me 14. So if you got those right, awesome. If not, you need to go back and double check and see where you went wrong. And then what I want you to do is I want you to work on this page right here. Okay? After you work on this page right here, I want you to follow the directions in Google Classroom, and I'm going to have a couple assignments for you to do to practice order of operations for the next couple of days. Okay? So if you have any questions, email me, and we'll go from there.